I believe there needs to be change. I believe there's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct, not just in my case, but in other cases. And it's just amazing to see how much a prosecutor can take advantage of somebody.
Kyle Rittenhouse speaking out just days after a jury acquitted him. And joining us right now, criminal defense attorney Karen Conti. Karen, good morning to you. We've been following this with you.
Jan.
You called this case. You thought he did very well on the stand and thought the defense clearly laid out the case. What did you make of how all of this played out?
Well, the thing that I'm encouraged about, again, this was a tragedy for everybody here. There was no good ending here. But I do think that what we should focus on is the fact that the jury did their job. They deliberated for 26 hours over 4 days. They asked for the jury instructions. They reviewed the videos. They reviewed the testimony, and they came up with this verdict. And you have to respect that. Whether you like the outcome or not, the system worked. And I don't know that this is a case about Second Amendment rights to carry a gun or a First Amendment rights to protest, but the jury focused on what they were supposed to do, which is, did the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt? And they came down and they said no.
Right. And they didn't listen to mainstream media and all of this. And looking forward, does this not guilty verdict set any kind of precedent, do you think, or case law moving forward on self-defense, on law and order, on guns, on protests?
Will it or should it? You know, I think that it shouldn't, because, again, the facts of this case were very specific. There were 3 separate shootings, and the facts were a perfect storm for a disaster. And so this was not a good result for anybody. But I do think that it draws attention to the idea of what happens when there is protest, what happens when people are allowed to walk around with guns. And certainly there are going to be legislators who are going to try to pass laws. But again, a particular set of facts should not really drive how our criminal justice system works.
Karen, what happens next? Could Rittenhouse face civil penalties despite the not guilty verdict? And on the flip side, there's also speculation if he now also has a defamation case.
Well, 2 of the victims have sued the city of Kenosha and some of the officials, saying they basically allowed this kind of chaos to happen, and that as a result, these people were shot and killed and wounded. And Rittenhouse could be sued too. Just because he was acquitted doesn't mean he wouldn't be subject to a civil lawsuit. But again, who's going to sue him? Does the kid have any money? And is that something that a lawyer is going to do? My guess is that that would be going nowhere. Does Kyle Rittenhouse have a defamation suit? That also would be difficult because he's a public figure. And how would he ever prove that his reputation was damaged by any one person when there were so many people talking about him across the country and really around the world? So again, he could have a defamation lawsuit. As a practical matter, probably wouldn't go anywhere.
While you're here, I want to talk about that horrible tragedy in WAUKESHA, Wisconsin. The suspect, 39-year-old Daryl Brooks, we know he's got a long criminal record, 2 open criminal cases, at least 6 other convictions of violent behavior. One of the pending cases involves Brooks allegedly running over the mother of his child with an SUV. He was charged with resisting an officer, bail jumping, recklessly endangering safety, disorderly conduct, battery. This was back on November 5th. Now, just 2 days before this incident, he was granted a $1,000 cash bail. The Milwaukee district attorney has opened an investigation into that bail, asking why it was so low. Why was he granted such a low bail?
Well, it's hard to say. I do know that in the criminal justice system in Chicago and in Milwaukee, we have overcrowding of everything. Prosecutors are slammed. The prisons themselves are full. And so the judges and the prosecutors want to move people through the system as quickly as possible. And things like this happen. And it's really a disaster. I also want to say that it may not be the bail system that is at fault here. It may be the charging system, because here's a guy who tries to run over his domestic partner with a car, and he gets charged with some sort of domestic violence or reckless behavior. I mean, that's attempted murder in my book. And had he been charged with attempted murder, then the bail would have been set higher. So again, we have to look at, was it a bail problem or was it a charging problem?
Very good point there, Karen. Always great to talk to you. Certainly appreciate you joining us here this morning.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Same to you as well. Happy Thanksgiving, Karen. Thanks for joining us.